Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 184 based on novel. So let's start. Those are my conditions for protecting you. Wang Lin's words didn't give the three any right to choose, and his gaze withdrew from the three of them. If the three of them agreed, then fine, but if not, then Wang Lin wouldn't get into this mess. The Ran family's ancestor pondered for a moment. The danger of the Juan family was too big. If no one took charge of this matter, then his Ran family would face the danger of extinction. He clenched his teeth and decisively said, "Okay." After that, the Ran family's ancestor turned his head and stared at the middle-aged man that was inside the glacier. Not only the Ran family's ancestor, Son 11 also looked at the middle-aged man with a mysterious light in his eyes. The Ran family's ancestor coldly said, "Brother Zaho, the three of us all attacked back then, do you intend to leave by yourself?" The middle-aged man pondered, and shortly after he wryly smiled. "I agree." After a while, he took out a bag of holding and took out some celestial jades before throwing it at Wang Lin. He then bitterly said, "My family isn't that big, so we don't have many celestial jades. I've been painstakingly saving up the celestial jades in that bag." The Ran family's ancestor and Son 11 also hand over the celestial jades. Celestial jades were precious consumables, so cultivators would often carry them around. As for the items from the Juan family member, the three of them handed them over without any hesitation. To them, these things weren't treasures but weights that had been making their hearts extremely heavy for the last 4 years. After collecting these items, Wang Lin turned around and disappeared. He left only one sentence that lingered in the wind. "If there is nothing important, don't disturb me. If the Juan family appears, I will act myself." After Wang Lin left, the three of them all silently pondered. Son 11 had other thoughts in his mind and was naturally the most relaxed one. He smiled as he clasped his hands. "Two fellow cultivators, I still have important matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first." The middle-aged man also sighed and said, "I have to take a trip home to prepare for celestial jades if fellow cultivator Shu requires them." The two of them went north and south in rays of red light. The Ran family's ancestor stood there by himself and silently pondered for a long time. Then he let out a deep breath as he looked into the distance and muttered, "Forget it. Going broke to avoid a disaster. The matter from 4 years ago will be shouldered by this Shu Mu. If he doesn't die, then we will be fine. Although this person doesn't look like someone who will break a promise, I still have to secretly prevent him from leaving planet Renyun." At this moment in the southern part of planet Thousand Illusion in the Juan family's ancestral home, the Juan family's head, Juan Fenshin, was respectfully standing next to an old man. This old man was rather skinny and was the same old man who had brought Liu Mai back from the Alliance star system. The old man's voice was cold. "If he disappeared 4 years ago, why is it only being handled now?" Juan Fenshin said, "Ancestor, that man was merely a member of a branch family, but his talent was good, so his cultivation reached the mid-stage of ascendant. This was how he got foreign duty. Ancestor, you know that our Juan family is too large. Aside from the direct disciples, it is impossible to keep track of all of them, even if they go missing." The ancestor frowned and asked, "There is no one with higher cultivation level?" Juan Fenhen whispered, "Ancestor, the time you gave us was too short. If you give me another 3 months, then I can find a more qualified person. However, I am unable at the moment." The old man pondered for a moment, decisively said, "Fine. I'll give you 3 more months." Juan Fenshin raised his head and asked, "What about the family member that disappeared 4 years ago? Since we know of this matter, send the guard assigned to Juan Mai to deal with it. Exterminate anyone involved. We have to show the might of the Juan family." Juan Fenshin nodded and left. After leaving the room, there was a hint of darkness in his eyes as he thought to himself, "The ancestor is really getting old. He is actually willing to perform the bloodline ritual for an outsider. He is even letting this Juan Mai go show off the might of the Juan family. Could it be that he wants her to lead the Juan family?" 3 days later. Liu Mai was inside her house. She looked outside at the sky and softly said, planet Renegade. Since adoptive father asked me to deal with this matter by sending someone, then, Juan Dong, you go. Yes? A person suddenly appeared from Liu Mai's shadow. He was about 30 years old and was very handsome. He appeared kneeling on one knee and looked up at Liu Mai's back with fanaticism in his eyes. Liu Mai turned around and softly said to the man, "Your cultivation has reached the peak of the mid-stage of Ascendant, so there should be no problem. Although this matter is small, it will be my first time doing something at the Huan family. You must finish this as fast as possible. Do you understand, Juan Dong?" "Lady, rest assured, Juan Dong will not disappoint your trust." Juan Dong took a deep breath and the fanaticism in his eye increased. When he first saw this Liu Mai, he was shocked. He thought that she was someone from the heavens. The most powerful cultivator on planet Renegade is the Ran family's ancestor. His cultivation level is the same as mine, mid-stage of Ascendant. Even if you multiply his boldness by 100 times, he won't dare to resist. My trip this time will definitely not make Miss lose face. Liu Mai revealed an extremely beautiful smile. Juan Dong was startled by the smile and stayed frozen for a bit. The fanaticism in his eyes became even stronger, and there was even a hint of obsession. After Wang Lin teleported, he arrived back in the Sun family's city. He didn't directly go back to the house but walked the streets, thinking about his domain comprehension. His life and death domain had already merged with his origin soul. His origin soul was his comprehension of his life and death domain. Above life and death could be karma. I'm unable to determine. The Tao of karma is too big. When I reached the Ascendant stage, I gained enlightenment and created the underworld river. However, this is only death. Looking at the bustling city around him, Wang Lin frowned slightly. But where is the Tao of life? While pondering, Wang Lin let out a sigh. He soon arrived in the northern part of the city. When he saw the youth sitting under the rock, he revealed a smile. This woman's heart is very kind. There aren't many cultivators like this in the cultivation world. The youth seemed to notice something and opened her eyes. When she saw Wang Lin, she was shocked and asked, "You? Didn't you get captured?" Wang Lin faintly smiled. "He let me go after asking me some things." The youth gave Wang Lin a puzzled look and didn't ask more. Everyone had their own secrets. If he didn't want to speak, asking would be pointless. "You better take your time to cultivate. I can see that your cultivation hasn't changed at all since you were last here. Remember the things I told you last time." The youth earnestly looked at Wang Lin and said, "Diligence can make up for lack of talent." Wang Lin nodded and smiled. "You work hard as well and strive to reach the soul formation stage." Soul formation, the youth shook her head and said, "I heard from the elders in the family that the soul formation stage is different. No matter how diligent you are, if you can't comprehend the heavens, then you can't reach that half-godlike existence, a realm you can never truly reach. I'll be very content with reaching the peak of the nascent soul stage in my life." Wang Lin faintly smiled. The sun was currently behind him and its light was falling on his body. It seemed like this smile also contained some of the sunshine. If you keep your current mentality, you will be able to reach the soul formation stage. The youth clearly thought that he was comforting her and she smiled. "Fine. If I reach the soul formation stage, I'll remember your enlightenment from today. Now, you better go back and cultivate." Wang Lin smiled and nodded his head. He walked through the entrance and disappeared. The youth under the rock muttered to herself, "Can I really reach the soul formation stage?" After returning to his room, Wang Lin sat down in the lotus position. His body was filled with celestial spiritual energy. Until his domain evolves, devouring more celestial spiritual energy would be useless. After pondering for a while, he took out the stuff left behind by the Huan family member. All of the items were in one bag of holding. There were some clothes and trivial things. What made Wang Lin's eyes become serious, aside from the rank 8 pills, were 2 magical treasures, a piece of jade, and a token. There wasn't any divine sense left in the 2 magical treasures. In fact, there was a sliver of the resentful spirit of the Huan family member that died. It was obvious that the Ran family's ancestor and the middle-aged man who obtained them didn't dare to leave their divine senses in them. One of the treasures was a black comb with a total of 19 teeth that gave off a bloody aura. The moment it appeared in Wang Lin's hand, he could feel the ferocity coming from it. Attacking type pseudo-celestial treasure. There is even a formation on it. The power of this treasure is not simple. Wang Lin gently touched the teeth of the comb and then his gaze fell on the other treasure. This was a pair of metal element flints. The two were completely red and they floated in Wang Lin's palm. He could feel the burning heat coming from them. Staring at the flints, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Then he grabbed one of them and rubbed them against each other. A spark appeared and a wave of heat suddenly spread out. A naturally formed magical treasure. Wang Lin sucked in a breath of cold air and his mind focused on the flint. Most treasures were refined by cultivators, but there were some that formed naturally. However, there were very few of these treasures, even less than inheritance treasures. Wang Lin knew this from the ancient god's memory. However, to the ancient god, this wasn't considered a treasure, only a material for refining treasures. Flint was one of the naturally formed refining materials. It was originally metal element, but due to its toughness, it contained some mysterious ability, so when two were rubbed together they would create sparks. These flints weren't like the things mortals used to start fires, they actually started a type of golden fire that was somewhat similar to the yarn fire used by the Sky Demon country's chief steward, One Guy with the Sun Lance spell that kept messing with Wang Lin during the Demon General competition. It could be used as a magical treasure instead of a refining material and its power was no weak. Unfortunately, they have too many flaws and don't contain a lot of metal element. Otherwise, these flints would not be weaker than peak pseudo-celestial treasures. If they were a little larger, they could compare to a low-quality celestial treasure. Wang Lin looked at the flints with pity in his eyes. Although this pair of flints was formed naturally, they contained too many impurities. If they were refined, they probably wouldn't even be 10% of their current size. After putting them away, Wang Lin picked up the token and scanned it with his divine sense. The token immediately lit up and flashed 3 times before returning to normal. This is the Juan family's identification token. Wang Lin's his divine sense carefully explored the token as he held. After a long time, his eyes became very serious. At first glance, there was nothing special about this token, just something used as identification. No matter how many times Wang Lin probed it, it was still the same. However, Wang Lin still felt like something was wrong. He pondered for a bit before shouting, "Celestial Guard." The shadow under him quickly extended from his body, then it moved along his skin and wrapped itself around the token. Wang Lin closed his eyes and borrowed the Celestial Guard's cultivation to immediately see through the token. Shortly after, Wang Lin opened his eyes and revealed a gloomy expression. This token is made of normal materials, but there is a spell inside it. This spell is related to the soul, so I presume the Juan family knows that their family member is dead. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin put down the token and picked up the last item, the jade. This jade also had no divine sense on it. The only thing on it was the sliver of the dead person's resentment. The 3 of them must have been extremely afraid if they didn't even dare to check it with their divine senses. Otherwise, that sliver of resentment would have immediately been destroyed the moment their divine sense entered the treasure. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and his divine sense entered the jade. The sliver of resentment was immediately destroyed. At the moment his divine sense entered, an invisible ripple spread out and began to scatter. When it was about to spread out of Wang Lin's house, his eyes suddenly lit up and rays of lightning shot out from his eyes. Among the waves of crackling sounds from the lightning, the ripple that the jade gave off was completely crushed by the lightning and dissipated. I wiped out the message spell that was left on the jade. Wang Lin carefully looked at the information recorded in the jade. After a long time, Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense and his eyes became brighter and brighter. It really is the Thousand Illusion ruthless domain. So the Juan family of Planet Thousand Illusion is like this. This jade contained the cultivation method for the Juan family's Thousand Illusion spells. However, there was a number of special restrictions placed on key parts, so even if an outsider obtained it, they wouldn't be able to learn it. The way to break the restrictions was the bloodline. If that was simply the case, it wouldn't have moved him so much. What really caught his attention was the message left in the jade by the Juan family member. On planet Yunia, I discovered a vein of flame metal. I took 2 pieces of it. The mysterious light in his eyes was bright like a beacon. He stared at the jade and muttered, "A vein of metal element flint, vein." No wonder he was hunted until he was seriously injured. Anyone who found it would immediately kill everyone to seal the news. This confirms that the 3 of them didn't check this jade, or else they wouldn't have allowed me into this. Of course, I can't rule out the fact there might be something hidden behind all of this. Wang Lin pondered a bit and figured that the 3 of them probably didn't know about the metal vein. After taking a deep breath, Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he muttered to himself, "The heaven-defying bead is only missing the metal element. There's no way an entire vein of metal element flame metal isn't enough to complete it." According to Sichu Nan, once the 5 elements are complete, it will recognize an owner. I just don't know what abilities it will have after. If the news of the metal element flame stone vein hasn't been exposed, it will be fine, but if it is, then whoever dares to fight with me for it will be killed by me. Wang Lin's eyes became cold and were filled with killing intent. Wang Lin put everything away, and his eyes shined while he pondered. I just don't know where planet Yunia is. Wang Lin opened his eyes and his divine sense immediately spread out. His divine sense swept across planet Renyun and descended upon where Sun 11 was. Sun 11 was sitting in the lotus position at the Sun family's ancestral home, ready to cultivate. However, he was startled and jerked his head when he heard Wang Lin's voice. "Engrave everything you know about the All-Heaven Star Systems map and send it to me." Sun Shi's eyes lit up and he slightly nodded. He took out a piece of jade and concentrated on it for a moment. Then he immediately threw the jade and it disappeared into the distance. 10 days flashed by in an instant. Wang Lin had already obtained the jade and found out where planet Runxia was. However, this planet was a bit far away. According to Wang Lin's calculations, if there were no delays, a round trip would take him several months. The jade had an introduction from Sun 11. No cultivators lived on planet Runxia, as the planet was filled with a poison that could kill cultivators. With the jade in hand, Wang Lin began to ponder. During these 10 days, he carefully studied the map and memorized it. At the same time, he also organized his treasures. On this day, Wang Lin stood up and walked out of the house. He then disappeared and reappeared tens of thousands of kilometers from the city before charging directly toward the atmosphere. Just at this moment, the Ran family's ancestor, Carefree Zan Ren, and Sun 11 appeared before Wang Lin. The Ran family ancestor's expression was gloomy as he looked at Wang Lin and asked, "Are you leaving, fellow cultivator Shu?" Carefree Zan Ren's expression was different and he was obviously hiding his anger. Only Sun 11 had a wry smile. When he heard that Wang Lin wanted the map, he had a bad feeling, but he didn't think that this Shu Mu actually had thoughts of leaving. Wang Lin coldly looked at the 3 of them and calmly said, "I will not break the promise I made. This trip at most will take 1 year, or only a few months." If it wasn't for the fact that they gave him all those celestial jades, Wang Lin wouldn't have bothered explaining to the 3 of them. After hearing Wang Lin's explanation, the Ran family's ancestor hesitated and said, "I don't know what urgent matter fellow cultivator Shu has. I wonder if 1 or 2 of us can follow." Carefree Shan Ren said, in a serious tone, "Please don't blame us, fellow cultivator Shu. The 3 of us gave you everything and not even half a month later you want to leave planet Renyun. The 3 of us can't help but feel suspicion in our hearts. Fellow cultivator Shu, I believe in your character, but this matter," Sun Xiu wryly smiled. It was reasonable for the 3 of them to be like this. No matter who it was, if they had just taken out a majority of their property, they would be like this as well. Wang Lin frowned. Then his expression suddenly changed and he raised his head toward the sky. The expressions of the other 3 also changed slightly. They raised their heads to look at the sky. At this moment, outside of planet Renyun, Juan Dong was quickly closing in. His eyes were cold and showed a hint of arrogance as he charged straight toward planet Renyun. "Miss, allowed me to handle this matter, so I must deal with it cleanly so that Miss will take notice of me." All those involved will be killed. The fanaticism in Juan Dong's eyes became even stronger. He turned into a ray of rainbow-colored light as he charged directly into planet Renyun's atmosphere and descended like a meteor. His descent was very arrogant. He spread out his divine sense like crazy and even infused it with celestial spiritual energy as it surrounded the planet. This incredible scene looked like a god was descending. At this moment, all of the cultivators on planet Renyun felt this powerful aura. This aura was especially arrogant, as if it was looking at ants as it swept the world. I'm Juan Dong, a second-grade family member of the Juan family from planet Thousand Illusion. All ascendant cultivators of planet Renyun, quickly come to see me. The cold voice was filled with arrogance. His voice rumbled like thunder across the planet. All of the cultivators below the ascendant stage were shocked by the voice, and some low-level cultivators even coughed out blood due to the shock. The youth under the rock was one of them. She was originally cultivating, but she was shocked by Juan Dong's divine sense infused with celestial spiritual energy. Her heart was damaged, so she coughed out blood and was immediately weakened. There were many cultivators like her on planet Renyun. The Ran family's ancestor, Carefree Shan Ren, and Sun 11 suddenly turned extremely pale. The words, Juan family, were like an invincible sword that immediately pierced their hearts and caused their expressions to change greatly. They came. The Juan family came, Sun 11 muttered to himself with a bitter expression. He looked at Wang Lin with eyes filled with despair, but his gaze contained a glimmer of hope. The Ran family's ancestor was the same, and he looked at Wang Lin at the same time as Carefree Shan Ren. Wang Lin's expression remained the same, but his eyes revealed a hint of coldness. Taking someone's money to help them eliminate a disaster. Wang Lin's divine sense spread out like roaring thunder. None of it was leaked out as his divine sense locked onto the sky and transformed into one word. Scram! This one word caused thunder to appear and explode forth like crazy. Juan Dong had just charged through the atmosphere when the thunder descended upon him. His eyes were filled with killing intent and he shouted, courting death. With that, his hand formed a seal and a ray of white light gathered in his palm. A cold yin aura immediately began to gather and diffuse around the world. For a cultivator to reach the ascendant stage, their domain has to fuse with their origin soul. Although this person was from the Juan family, his limited talent made it so that he couldn't cultivate the Thousand Illusion Ruthless domain. Instead, he cultivated the secondary cultivation method of the Hound family, 5-element intent art. His domain was the metal element of the 5 elements. Metal presented invincibility. His domain moved with his spell and his hand lit up. At this moment, it was as if that light had replaced the light from the sky or looked like it had absorbed all the light in the sky. Using the power of the light, he pressed down his hand. Wang Lin's expression remained the same. Lightning flashed through his eyes and spread across his whole body. He looked like a heavenly celestial that was in control of everything. He pointed with his finger and the finger of death shot out. This finger of death contained powerful lightning, so it was several times more powerful than man. If one looked at it carefully, it would make one feel like they were facing divine retribution. The finger of death turned into a ray black light as it shot out. Ripples appeared around it, and even the ripples had lightning crackling along them. The sound echoed and continued to expand before becoming bursts of thunder that were descending from the sky. The power of thunder around the finger of death was even more powerful. It was as if it was the wrath of the divine retribution lightning. With one finger, the light around Juan Dong's body disintegrated without any resistance. His expression immediately became pale and he quickly retreated. The power of that finger was too strong, to the point that even with his cultivation, his heart trembled. However, that ray of black light was like a black dragon. It charged directly at the retreating Juan Dong. Juan Dong slapped his bag of holding and a metal sword came out. At the same time, his right hand formed a seal and he pressed it down on the sword. He shouted, "Might of metal!" The metal sword flew directly at the finger of death. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly erupted in the sky. A series of crackling sounds occurred when the finger of death collided with the metal sword before the metal sword shattered inch by inch until the sword disappeared. The finger of death pierced through space like a ray of lightning and arrived before Juan Dong. In the moment of crisis, Juan Dong's hand formed a seal and collided with the finger of death. A thunderous roar echoed throughout the area. Juan Dong's body trembled and he coughed out a mouthful of blood. He retreated like he was a meteor, and as he did so, lightning flickered all over his body. Every time the lightning flickered, his injuries became worse. This lightning was extremely strange, as a portion of it surrounded his origin soul, making his origin soul struggle with extreme pain. His face was pale and filled with terror. What kind of thunder is this? What kind of cultivation does this person have? If just one spell was enough to seriously injure me like this, then this person is definitely not from planet Renegade. I can't fight, I must quickly leave and report this back to Miss. Juan Dong slapped his leg and white light immediately began to shine from it. He became even faster, to the point that half of his body had already disappeared into the void and he was just about to teleport away. When Wang Lin was at the early stage of Ascendant, but his spells had already surpassed those of mid-stage Ascendant cultivators. The gap between the late stage of Ascendant and the earlier two stages was too great, but he could fight against mid-stage Ascendant cultivators. Now, although he was still at the early stage of Ascendant, the amount of celestial spiritual energy in his body was infinitely close to what mid-stage Ascendant cultivators had. He only needed an enlightenment in his domain to break into the mid-stage of Ascendant. Therefore, killing this Juan Dong was as easy as waving his hand. Wang Lin's eyes became cold after seeing Juan Dong trying to escape. Since he took their payment, he would need to get rid of the disaster. Sometimes it was impossible to tell what was right or wrong. Wang Lin gently slapped his bag of holding and the 7-star sword formation flew out as 7 rays of light. The 7-star sword formation was created by Sword Saint Ling Jianhu, so how could anyone defend against it? In the blink of an eye, the 7 swords charged out and arrived before Juan Dong the moment he was about to disappear into the void. The 7 souls from the swords immediately appeared and fused into one. The fused beast let out a roar and fiercely clawed at Juan Dong. A sound like mirror breaking echoed across the sky. Inside the void, Juan Dong's eyes were filled with terror, and the beast forcibly pulled Juan Dong out from the void. When he was out, the 7 swords surrounded Juan Dong, their tips pointing close to his body. If he moved even slightly, the swords would penetrate his body and destroy his soul. From the moment Juan Dong appeared to when he was captured, everything happened extremely quickly, only several breaths of time had passed. The Ran family's ancestor sucked in a breath of cold air. Although he had personally felt Wang Lin's spells and knew that they were powerful, watching one as a third party was a completely different experience. There was dread in his eyes. Before, when Wang Lin attacked him, there was only the flash of a black shadow and he almost died. Now he realized that the black shadow wasn't Wang Lin's only spell. It seemed like every spell Wang Lin used was extremely terrifying. He completely made up his mind that he would never make an enemy out of his Shumu. The terror that carefree Shenren felt in his heart wasn't any weaker than what the Ran family's ancestor felt. He looked at the 7-star sword formation and took a deep breath. At this moment, he had no doubt that if Shumu wanted to kill him, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. I'm afraid his cultivation might be at the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. Relatively speaking, Sun 11 was much more calm. In his heart, he thought that Wang Lin's cultivation level was extremely high. At this moment, he felt better and thought, if this Shumu is this strong, I need to make sure I have a good relationship with him. Juan Dong's scalp went numb. The 7 swords around him were like knives of death hanging above his head that could fall at any time. He stared at Wang Lin but also saw the other 3 behind him and shouted, Ran Xiefeng, Sun 11, Zhao Chuawen, you guys looking for death? The 3 silently pondered but didn't speak. However, there was a flash of coldness across their eyes. Juan Dong saw this cold light and secretly realized that something was wrong. He shouted, I'm only here on orders of the Huan family. If you kill me, the Huan family will send others to come. Do you think you can kill them all? With your mere power, if you resist my Huan family, you will die for sure. Release me and I'll seek a fair judgment for all of you. Although Juan Dong's words were to the Ran family's ancestor and company, his gaze would occasionally sweep to Wang Lin. It seemed like he had a certain amount of fear of the person who had captured him. He was also guessing what background he might have. After the Ran family's ancestor heard this, there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes, but it was immediately replaced with determination. He calmly said, "Fellow cultivator Juan, I wonder why you came to planet Renyun." Juan Dong stared at the Ran family's ancestor and then looked at the other two. Juan Dong smiled. So the Juan family member was really killed by you 3-4 years ago. Ran Xiefeng, Son 11, Zhao Chuawen, your family's bloodlines have reached their end. The Ran family's ancestor's expression became gloomy as he turned to Wang Lin and said, "Fellow cultivator Shu, how about handing this person over to us?" Wang Lin's expression remained the same and he nodded. "Named Shu. Who exactly are you and why do you want to get involved with my Huan family's matter?" Juan Dong suddenly turned toward Wang Lin and snapped, "My Huan family's ancestor has already returned. Do you really think you can fight against my Huan family's ancestor? I'll let you go, and I promise not to mention you to my lady. I will definitely not drag you into this matter." "The Huan family's miss?" Wang Lin looked at Juan Dong. Son 11 explained, "Fellow cultivator Shu, you don't know about this, but the Huan family's ancestor brought back a woman from the Alliance star system. He accepted her as his disciple and will be using the bloodline ritual to change her bloodline." Wang Lin's eyes narrowed and asked, "What's the Huan family's ancestor's cultivation level?" Huan Hong relaxed a bit and said, "The ancestor's cultivation has already reached the second step. Several thousand years ago, he was already at the yin and yang stage." Wang Lin looked at the Ran family's ancestor and company with a smile that was not a smile. There was a hint of mockery in his gaze, causing the Ran family's ancestor to lower his head. Wang Lin calmly said, "I'll be handing him to you guys. This has nothing to do with me anymore." Then he waved his hand and the 7-star sword formation circled around Juan Dong, sealing his origin soul. Then the swords flew back to Wang Lin's side. "I still have important matters to attend to and will return in a few months." With that, Wang Lin turned around and left. Juan Dong's eyes revealed despair and he shouted, "If you kill me, my miss will not let you guys go. Lady Huan Mai is the ancestor's only disciple and she will be my Huan family's head in the future." Wang Lin suddenly stopped and turned around. He looked at Juan Dong and calmly asked, "Huan Mai? What was her original name?" Juan Dong sneered and said, "If you let me go, I'll tell you." Before he could finish, Wang Lin frowned and reached out. Juan Dong's body immediately flew into Wang Lin's hand. Wang Lin pressed his hand on Juan Dong's head and then a ray of lightning flashed across his eyes. The shadow behind him quickly moved through his arm and completely surrounded Juan Dong's body. Soul Search. Juan Dong's cultivation was, after all, at the mid-stage of Ascendant, so if he wanted to use the Soul Search spell, he had to borrow the power of the Celestial Guard. Juan Dong's memories were like pieces of fragments as Wang Lin looked through them with the help of the Celestial Guard. As he looked, Juan Dong's body began to shake violently and his eyes revealed a painful struggle. As he searched through the memories, Wang Lin suddenly locked onto a beautiful woman, and his expression became gloomy. He loosened his hand and hit Juan Dong's body. Juan Dong's body collapsed and his origin soul was caught by Wang Lin. Wang Lin threw Juan Dong's origin soul into the 1 billion soul flag. The sudden scene caused the Ran family's ancestor and company to become startled, and they each had their own thoughts. "Liu Mai," Wang Lin frowned, and scenes from back on planet Suzaku flashed across his eyes, including what happened back in the Suzaku tomb. That woman had a great stroke of luck and came to the All-Heaven star system. Wang Lin silently pondered for a long time. He looked up at the sky and didn't speak as he left. The Ran family's ancestor and company no longer dared to block him. They helplessly looked at Wang Lin's figure gradually disappear. After leaving the atmosphere, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and the star compass appeared. It turned into a silver dragon and disappeared into space. Wang Lin sat in the lotus position on the silver dragon and muttered to himself, "This Liu Mai woman doesn't have any deep enmity with me. If she knows what's good for her, everything will be fine. If she still acts like she did back on planet Suzaku, then I can only kill her." As for the Huan family's ancestor, I don't have to fight him to the death. If he appears, I can just leave with the help of the Celestial Guard. Also, I'm by myself, while he has a family. If I can't kill him, I'll kill some of his family members for revenge. After he made up his mind, Wang Lin no longer thought about Liu Mai's matter but focused on the map in his mind. He was heading toward planet Yunia. The metal element flame metal vein on planet Yunia is extremely important to me, as it is a perfect opportunity to complete the heaven-defying bead. I won't allow anyone to stop me. If anyone dares to try to steal it, I'll kill them. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he flew through the stars. Along the way, Wang Lin didn't rest at all. 1 month later, planet Yunia appeared in this divine sense far in the distance. This video will end here.